huge fund for women and minority business and to the private sector non-government agencies that can serve the mostly minority peoples. So thank you for his contribution to our community and to our city and to our state. He is also a professor, adjunct professor. He teaches. I don't know how he manages all those things. He is everywhere. We can learn from him a lot. You know what? His great contribution to our state. He was the chair of state banking committee, finance committee, and now he is involved with telecommunication and energy committee, and many other committee, banking, finance, insurance, and he's playing a lot of important role, even Senate Rules Committee. So without further ado, I will say welcome to our panel today, Mr. Parker. So how we do this thing, we will do 3 minutes your introduction. You will say first 3 minutes, and then we will ask you a few questions. Our committee members will ask you a few questions. At the end, you will get another 2 minutes for closing. I will introduce first myself, then we'll go to our president. My name is Mohammed Karim Chowdhury. I'm the National Secretary for ASAAL. I am a New York State Public Employee Federation member, co-chair for a statewide Affirmative Action Committee, Advisory Committee, and also a council leader for New York State Division 349, New York State Public Employee Division 349. Also, I am the delegate for FAB delegate to New York City Central Labor Council. Mabbai, please introduce yourself.
Yes, Kevin, good to see you. I know this is a tough time for you guys to manage every interview that you are giving, but we welcome you. So we are a little bit late and slow. We are going to hit the next one maybe, but we will give you plenty of time to define you, as Karim mentioned. My name is Mahfoudin. You know me very well. I'm the national president of ASAAL. We have around 15 chapters, 6 chapters in New York City. All of them can work for you as volunteers once we endorse you. And then, of course, I'm the president of Local 1407 last 21 years. I think the time you started, I started same time. The treasurer of District Council 37 for last 18 years. I am the MLC steering committee member. I am the vice president of International AFL CIO, a constituents group, APALA, and of course, delegate to CLC, delegate to MLC, delegate to FSME. Here he come. Thank you very much for coming.
Albert Baldeo.
Hi, Senator. How are you doing? I remember in 2006, we ran with the state Senate race. Thank you for your support, Delegate Maltese, and you helped to get back a state Senate majority of which you were a part. I'm a president of the United Communities Alliance, and I'm here with life members at ASAAL, and we're here to work with you as to what you can do for our community.
Queen Chapter President Monirul Islam. Unmute yourself.
This is MD Monirul Islam, Queen Chapter President, also EF2 members, and I have been teaching almost 18 years.
All right, thank you, Monir Bhai. Next, Somnath Gimire, please. Jacksonite Chapter President. Somnath, unmute yourself, Dada.
Thank you, Karimda. And nice to see you, Senator. I'm Somnath Gimire, Queens Jackson Heights Chapter President from ASAAL, and I was the former President of Alliance for Democracy and Human Rights in Nepal, USA, for last 2005 to 2012, 7 years. We fought for democracy in Nepal. And here I welcome you, and we look forward working with you, supporting you. Let's see our National President, Mahfoudin, commands. He's our commander. Thank you.
Thank you. Reginald Rajakaruna.
Hi, Senator. I'm the Staten Island chapter of ASAAL. I'm the secretary. I'm under DC 37, Local 1407, and I'm counselor in New York City Housing Authority. Thank you.
Tamara Martin.
Good evening, Senator. It's good to see you. I'm a ASAAL member. I'm also from Public Employees Federation, the co-chair of the statewide Joint Affirmative Action Advisory Committee, co-chair for Region 10 Political Action Committee, and a PEF council leader at the Division 351 in the State Attorney General's Office. Good to see you.
Nurulak Bhai.
Hello, Professor. How are you? My name is Nurul Haq. I'm the Executive Vice President of ASAAL Queens Chapter, also a member of 1199 SEIU. I'm a Community Board 12 member at Queens, also an Nypd 103rd Precinct Corresponding Secretary. Nice to meet you, Senator.
Harjit Minhas. Harjit.
Hello, my name is Hardeep Minhas. I'm a Queens Chapter Secretary. I was an executive board member for 1407. I've been with ASAAL for a couple of years now, and I work also with the city, with the Department of Finance, as the director of the payroll and benefits area. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you have.
All right, Harjit, next time, please try to fix your mic. I think you have some network or microphone. We did not hear you clearly. When you're asking question, try to fix your mic. Mosumi Khan, please.
Good evening. I am Moshmi Khan. I'm calling you from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I'm I'm a lawyer, and I'm very happy to be with ASAAL in the National Immigration Policy person, and I'm very eager to hear from you what your stances are in kind of immigration policies. Thank you, Ms. Levine, for inviting me. Thank you, Mr. Karim Chaudhry again. Okay, and everybody.
Adan Islam.
Hi, good evening. This is Adan Islam. I'm the Women's Committee Chair, Queens Chapter ASAAL, and I'm also a CUNY adjunct. So, yeah, I want to tell you that. Thank you.
She's a great leader. She does a lot of work. Next, Afroza Begum.
Hi, my name is Afroza Begum. Kevin, how are you today? Good to see you here. And I'm the ASAAL member, and also I'm the New York Bangladeshi Women's Club president. Thank you. And community activist also. Thank you so much.
Jed, unmute yourself and talk. Jed, if you can unmute yourself. Jed Metalon, ASAAL National Corresponding Secretary. Jed, can you unmute? Sharmin Tahir, please go ahead. Let Sharmin Tahir.
Yeah, good evening, Senator. My name is Sharmin Tahir, ASAAL member, Queens Chapter.
Very good. So I think we have done all, unless Dr. Mujibur Rahman is around here. Oh, Ihsanul Haq, Engineer Ihsanul Haq, introduce yourself. Unmute first. Unmute. Yes.
Thanks, Chaudhary Bhai. Hi, Mr. Kevin. Good evening. Having the opportunity to talk to you after a long time. I think you remember we meet at the Davies Al Montasur house a long time ago when we endorsed, and the Monir was there when fundraising, and he's working with the Letitia James. So this is a great opportunity for us if you elected as a city controller. And we work with ASAAL. We'll try our best to elect you again because I know you a long time. I know you will be good leader. Thanks.
Sultana Khanum from Queens. Sultana Khanum, are you there? Okay, we will not spend time. We will move forward with this thing. Kevin, this is your first 3 minutes. Introduce yourself and what you can do for our city.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chowry. And let me just say this is like being at home. So many people here who I've known and I've worked with. Again, I'm running for city controller. Would love to have your endorsement. Would love to work, more importantly, work with you for the things that are important for all of our communities. We have to, fight back the pandemic. We have to rebuild our economy. We have to create a redevelopment of our city that's equitable, right? Which is why the first thing I've talked about doing is developing a economic equity council that would be made up of economic leaders, business leaders, labor leaders, community leaders, clergy leaders, to bring some folks together to start charting our way back. I'm going to work on small businesses. I want to work through CUNY to develop small business development centers the way I've done it at Brooklyn College in my own district, so that the small businesses in our communities could have access to capital, access to bonding, access to mentorship, and access to the technical assistance they need to be successful. Why? Because in Asian communities, Black communities, Black communities, Latino communities, and amongst women, small businesses are a major employer. We have an economy that's moved from Wall Street to Main Street, and we have to rebuild our small businesses and give them the things they need to get a leg up. Not just because we want those businesses to be successful, but we have to create full-time jobs at a living wage with benefits. New Yorkers want a hand up, not a handout. and I want to help them get that hand up. I want to invest in our schools. I want to make sure that we audit the police department to make sure that we get fair policing. When the state legislature first did our 10 package bill of bills, I did 4 of them, right, including police cameras for state police, 911 false reporting, and the Office of Police Misconduct in the AG's office. I actually wrote those bills not because of the death of George Floyd, but I wrote those bills 10 years earlier because of the reports that have been done around the NYPD and how they were, surveilling mosques and the Muslim community. The reality is the African American and the Muslim community in particular have a lot in common. In fact, in the United States, 50% of the people who identify themselves as being Muslim are African American. And so we can't have Black lives matter unless Muslim lives matter, unless South Asian lives matter, unless everybody's lives matter. And I really want to work with folks to make sure that happens, because ultimately we're in the same struggle, which is why I've been involved with the issues around Islamic finance and developing sukuk. I passed a bill with Charles Fall last year that would allow the state to do sukuk. I have been somebody who has fought for the Eid holiday. And let me just say, I'm one of the few people who have had, people who are Pakistani on their staff. In fact, the person who set up this meeting is Manik, who's from Pakistan. Some of you all know Umar Khan, who works for Tish James, began his political career here in the state of New York working for me and doing a lot of the work that we've talked about. And so there's so much that we need to do around managing our pension fund and making sure that African Americans, Latinos, Asians, and women have access to that pension fund. With 60% of the population, less than 2% of us actually manage the money in the pension fund. And we need to invest the money in funds that invest in New York City. And then lastly, let me just say, I want to change the contracting roles that we do in order to put more people working on contracting to make sure that the nonprofits in our community are getting the money in a timely fashion. And so there's a lot of work that we need to do in terms of making our community and our city more stable economically, but we also need to make sure that as we make it more stable economically, that we do it in a way that's equitable and that we do it in a way that's just. And I've worked with you in the past. I'm somebody who's going to would love to work with you in the future. Thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to building back our city to a place where we all can call it home.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Parker. You know what? I think I missed one point that is very important to our community and especially this screening committee members. Mr. Parker is also a vice chair for Senate Committee for Black, Puerto Rican, and Asian. He represents us in New York State Senate. Thank you for this. And with that note, I would like to go to direct to the questioning, and you will get another 2 minutes at the end of our questioning. So I would like to ask our Jackson Heights chapter president, Somnath Gimere, to ask the first question. Any question from your list?
In a brief statement, Senator, describe how you will use your office to fight for issues important to ASAAL families and other communities.
Thank you for that question. Again, there's a couple of different things. The first of which is that the city controller has kind of 3 functions. Is a revenue and contracting function, an audit function, and then as a fiduciary of the pension fund. Let me work backwards. As a fiduciary of the pension fund, again, one of the things that I will do is make sure that we're investing in businesses that are connected to our communities, right? Whether that's the Southeast Asian community, whether that's looking at labor, and making sure that we're making the right investments. Job one for the fiduciaries of the pension fund is that making money for the pensioners. If it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. I will make sure that we make money for you, but simultaneously do it in a way that benefits our community. 2, I will make sure that we look at the police department and look at some of the unfair practices that they've had, not just towards African Americans and Latinos, but also in the Asian community. Nobody even talks about the number of people who are Sikh in our communities who get attacked because people misidentify them as being Muslim. And we have not done a good job around that. And I'll use the audit function to make sure that we're spending money in the places that our police department needs to serve our community. And then let me also just say that I think that it's going to be critically important that we look at prevailing wage. And as somebody, as a city controller, obviously prevailing wage is important for members of labor unions, and I'll make sure that we enforce the labor agreements and the prevailing wage across the city of New York.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Queen Chapter President Moralul Islam.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Parker. You did know me before in the Brooklyn. Now I'm Queens. I have a question. What priority resources should the city give to making government service accessible to immigrant residents? You hear me? Hello?
That's a great question. One of the things that we really need to do, I mean, you know, it's been hard, right? Like, so in the Senate, I was actually the first person to introduce the bill on the DREAM Act. I also put in the first green light bill, right? The one that's supposed to pass last year. So those are big issues for us. We don't have a lot of direct access to things around immigration, but there are things we can do. One of the things that we need to do is that we need to do more around language access, both around the city controller office generally, but then around the entire city. Put more things online and put more things online in different languages like Urdu, and make it available so that people from all communities can have access to the information about how their taxes are being used and how their money's being used. The other thing too is, you know, we have to really, I think, work hard to make sure that we have legal access to the economy for everyone. And that's one of the things that I'll work on and make sure that we are going after, you know, unscrupulous lawyers and other consultants who go after the immigrant community. And a lot of times the immigrant community is also, you know, targets by lots of criminals, and we don't pay a lot of attention to it. And some of that crime is things that the DA needs to pay attention to, but some of those are economic crimes that the city controller can also help identify and work with DAs to prosecute, to make sure that our immigrant communities are safer.
Reginald Rajakaruna, Reg.
New York City for many years was the leader in innovative healthcare services, such as providing for immunizations at neighborhood schools, providing dental clinics for the poor and needy, providing access to free health clinics. Many of these services are now threatened with extinction. What would you do to preserve and expand these services?
Yeah. In addition, the city controller, in addition to having an opportunity to do audits, can also do economic impact analysis. And I would love to do one around school-based health clinics. It's been one of the things that former Senator Vilmanette Montgomery worked on a lot. And when she left, she tasked me to carry it on. It's one of the things that I would make sure that we do. Access to healthcare services, and not just physical health, but also mental health, is absolutely critical for our communities. Again, in immigrant communities, more than even other communities. And so you have my, you know, my commitment that I'll continue to be a champion for school-based health clinics, for making sure that the services that are being provided and Black, Latino, Asian communities are continue to be provided by, you know, because when we understand that budgets are about values and not about numbers. The question is not whether we have the money or not. We're going to have a $90 billion budget. I don't want people on this call to get caught up in the Dunkin' Donuts maneuver, right? Where they have you all the time looking at the hole and not talking about the donuts. Even if we wind up with a deficit next year, we're still going to spend upwards of $90 billion. And we need to make sure that $90 billion is spent in the places that is most important. And that's why I talk about equity as opposed to equality.
Albert?
Oh, yes, Senator. You bring a lot of experience and a lot of heart to this race. I know you're not someone who can be bullied easily, and that you'll bring the powers of your office to help minorities like us and so forth. So, you know, if you were to support you, of course, we would be able to provide troops and resources to you on your path to victory. Can you just summarize? I know you have thought of this a lot, Senator Parker. What is your path to victory in this race?
Yeah,
thank you. Bring all these great things to the table.
Yeah, thank you. But the first thing I'm going to do is get this endorsement. This endorsement, I think, secures me in a lot of different places, because as you understand, this community is not a community in one borough, but literally all over the city. And that becomes a great anchor for the conversations that I'm trying to have about economic equity and about access to resources, right? And so we're raising money, you know, and then connecting with various groups across the city and bringing my message literally directly to voters. I don't need as much as everybody, as a lot of other people, because I have a lot more experience. People, I don't need validators. Just like with this group, people know who I am. I've been here for 18 years. I'm the chairman of the Energy and Telecommunications Committee. I'm the majority whip. I've been on the Finance Committee and the Banking Committee for over 10 years. And I work with various communities to make sure that we speak truth to power. And I'll continue to do that. And so I expect that, the conversations tonight will be the beginning of a domino of folks who are going to be rolling out shortly to support my candidacy.
Very good. Tamara Martin.
Yes, hi, good evening. So my question is, we are always supporting telecommuting and are happy that during this pandemic, most public servants work from home, in most cases resulting in higher production. Will you continue to support telecommuting where possible, saving millions of dollars in office space and related expenses, and reducing traffic during rush hour, et cetera?
Ms. Martin, first of all, great to see you again. Been a long time.
Yes.
Hopefully we'll be able to see each other again when the pandemic slows down.
Yes.
And the short answer to your question is yes. The longer answer is, as the chair of the Energy and Telecommunications Committee, there is nobody in this race who's done more on the issue of not just giving lip service and saying support it, but to actually make sure it gets built out.
Right.
I've helped negotiate a deal between Verizon and Nycha so that every family that has a child in it can get free access to broadband. Right, we're in the process in the next month to rolling out a package called eLearn, a bill written by Shelley Mayer that we're going to put forward. I have a broadband affordability bill that we're going to do, and a municipal broadband bill that we're going to do in the city that's going to bring rates down so that people in the city can get cable and get free broadband for $10 a month. Right, which is well short of the $200 that most of us are paying a month now. And so I'm not just talking about it; I'm being about it, and I'm gonna put put power into making sure that we continue to do that.
Sounds good. Thank you,
Mr. Parker.
Thank you.
I want to counter question a little bit. I think, will you support telecommuting and save millions of dollars? Will you support that?
Yes. So yes, I am supporting telecommuting and to save $1 million to cut down on the traffic. It is the wave of the future. And it's important, again, not just for our communities, but also for our young people, because when people are telecommuting, they also have more access to their children. And so we're going to have a lot less latchkey kids like I was. My parents went to work all the time. If my mother could have telecommuted, she could have been around me more. And I could have wound up as president instead of just a state senator.
Thank you. Thank you. Harjit, please unmute yourself. Harjit. Yeah.
Hello, Senator. Okay.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
As you know, representation really matters, right? So the question I have for you is, are you committed to increasing diversity in your staff? And if elected, how many South Asians do you plan on appointing? How will you promote the South Asian community to get access to local city, state, and federal jobs and benefits? Is there any particular plan you have for the South Asian community?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, and thank you for asking it. Some of it is that this is like the best question ever, because I think I have more diversity on my staff than anybody else. Definitely running. My entire staff now, except for my fellow, are people of color. I'm probably the only person with somebody who's Pakistani, Manik Elahi. Like I said, I talked about Umar Khan, who worked on my staff. And there's been others. I have people who are gay and lesbian on my staff now. I've had, Latinos, Asians. I'm one of the few, you can check this in this moment. I am one of the few people in Albany who's never had a white person as a legislative director. My legislative director now is African-American. Before him, it was somebody who was Latina, and so we've always, it was a Black woman, and before her was a Latina. And so, my plan is to continue to do what I do, which is, after we win, is to talk to people from this community and get recommendations from people in this organization to say, who should I hire for various jobs? And I'll do that with the Latino community and the African-American community, and make sure we have a balance of women, of, LGBTQ folks, and to make sure that my staff looks like
looks like the city.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to follow up quickly.
Yes, sir.
In particular, just for the South Asian community, do you have a plan? Right?
Yeah, again, my particular plan is to begin by talking to a lot of my friends here, and particularly this organization, to get specific recommendations of people I can hire for my staff.
Okay, thank you.
You know, Senator, if you are elected, you will have around 700 people in your office.
Yes.
And around 200 people are political appointee you will hire. So
Yes.
I think Harjit was asking a little pressing to know, you know, what percentage of your offices are political appointee.
I think it's difficult to talk about an actual percentage, right? And without kind of being in that place and seeing what's available. But I certainly am. Let me say this: I will commit to making sure that the population of South Asians is the same as it is in the city.
Thank you. That's huge.
Yeah, Mr. Chaudhary. Mr. Chaudhary, I would like to share some idea on behalf of Kevin, if you permit.
Okay,
I know that
your term will come. One second.
Okay.
Hold on, your term is coming now. Harjit, I think if you have any other question, follow-up question, you can do it later on. Let me allow some other people to ask. Sharmin Tahir.
Hi, Senator. Good evening.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. So I have two questions. This is my favorite question. Do you support mayoral control of New York City schools? It's number one. And number two, and what changes would you make to close the achievement gap of the 1.1 million school children of New York City? Thank you.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the second part of your question?
Yeah. What changes would you make to close the achievement gap of the 1.1 million school children of New York City?
Wow, great question. So the first thing is that I do support mayoral control. And I think that we've gotten things a lot better. I think the problem has been who the mayor has been. But and I don't mean that about Bill de Blasio. I meant that we didn't really get as much as we should have gotten during the Bloomberg administration. But I do support it because I think it gives us more centralized control. I would make some tweaks to it to make sure that there's more accountability and transparency, and especially around access for parents. But I do generally support it. And the second thing is that what I would change for schools. I think that the same way the comptroller has to invest in businesses, we have to invest in our next generation. Young people are 100% of our future. And so the first thing I would do is I would push and work with the mayor and work with the city council to add more music, art, athletics, and dance as regular parts of the curriculum. I would expand school-based athletics. I would make sure that we do a lot more around working with the UFT to close the shortage of teachers. People don't talk about this, but we have a teacher shortage in the city of New York, and we don't have enough diverse teachers. And so part of what I would love to do is talk with, again, groups like yours to figure out how do we encourage and how do we create more incentives for people from the South Asian community to become teachers, and how do we create a pipeline such that there's more access, more access to learning from people who look like the people who are in our community. And then also we need, now that we have universal pre-K, we need universal after school, and I think universal after school is absolutely critical to make sure that young people are getting the access and help that they need throughout the day, and not just for kids, but also for parents. And so those are some of the areas that I would begin looking at.
Okay, so I think we have our next candidate is waiting around 10 minutes, so we'll not go further questioning. Please take you 2 minutes to conclude why we need to choose you, why you deserve our vote.
Yes. So again, I want to thank you all for taking this evening, to give me an opportunity to talk before you. I appreciate it. I apologize for my tardiness, but we have a record together, right? I don't want to talk about my record. I want to talk about our record. I want to talk about the fact that we have worked together to beat back the NYPD. I'm the person who has the NYPD residency program. I will do better to make sure that the city of New York's police department is reflective of the South Asian community. we have worked together on economic issues like Sukuk. I will make sure that things like Sharia compliant finance is part of the pension fund work that we do in the state, to make sure that people who are collecting pensions who may be Muslim don't have to collect it from a system that is non-compliant with their religious beliefs. I will make sure that we fight for things like the Eid holiday. I will make sure that we make sure that every single child in the city of New York has the kind of access to education that they should have, especially given how much money that we spent. I will make sure that we as we come out of this pandemic economy, that we create full-time jobs at a living wage with benefits, that we support our small businesses because they are the job creators in our communities, and to make sure that everybody who comes here has an equal access to the American dream. And so thank you so much for this opportunity, and I look forward to building a city together that reflects all of our values and builds us back towards progress.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, and wish you good luck. You will hear from us by next week, I think. Our process, we will talk and we will vote, and then we will make our decision, your office, and you will be notified accordingly.
Thank you so much. All right, take care. Everybody have a good evening.
Really appreciate. Wish you the good luck.
Okay.
Okay. Now I know because of the timing conflict, most of you could not ask the question. It is your time with Senator Kevin. Kevin is gone now. That we have Brian Benjamin. Brian is a very, Brian is a child of DC 37, I think. Is it Brian? I'm saying it right?
Yes, I am.
Yes, I know that. Your mom is my colleague for many years. And we never spoke about that. So today you are here. You are in good hand. So, Kevin, with me we have around
Brian.
Huh? Oh, sorry. Yeah, Brian Benjamin, because we just finished Kevin. That is why. Brian, with us around 20 of our members from different chapters. We have 15 chapters across this country in 80 states, but New York City we have 6 chapters. So of which all the 6 chapters leaders are here. They are going to ask you questions. First, we are going to introduce us, and our secretary, National Secretary Karim Chaudhary, is going to run the show. And after you introduce yourself, defining you, who you are, why you are running, why you think you should be the controller for 3 minutes, then everybody will ask you questions. After that, at the end, you will give your last sermon, why we should choose you. Okay, with that note, good luck. My name is Mahfoud. I'm the treasurer of District Council 37, president of Local 1407 the last 21 years. And also I'm the founder and national president of the Alliance of South Asian American Labor. As I mentioned to you, we are everywhere now. And at the same time, I sit on the MLC steering committee and international vice president of APALA, AFL-CIO, and so on and so forth. But the fun is here. We are working with the community, and community has a lot of things to ask you. With that note, Karim bhai, you introduce, and everybody will introduce, and then Karim will continue the show.
Mohammed Karim Chaudhary, National Secretary of ASAAL. I am also the co-chair for New York State Public Employee Federation, Joint Affirmative Action Advisory Committee, and Council Leader for Division 349, New York State Education Department. And also the New York State Public Employee Federation delegate to New York City Central Labor Council. And with that, I will finish my part. I will ask our Queen Chapter President, Monir Islam, to introduce. Monir bhai, please unmute and make it short. Monir bhai, unmute.
Yeah, this is MD Monir Islam, EFT member, also ASAAL Queen's President, and I have been teaching almost 20 years in the New York City Public.
Thank you. Somnath, please.
Yeah, this is Somnath Gimir, ASAAL president from Jackson Heights, Queens chapter, and I was the former president of Alliance for Democracy and Human Rights in Nepal, USA, from 2007 to 2012. And there you go. Now with the ASAAL campaign now. Thank you.
Very good. Harjit, unmute yourself, Harjit.
Hello, my name is Harjeet Minhas. I'm the Queens Chapter Secretary. I'm a former executive board member of 1407. Currently, I work for the Department of Finance as the director of the payroll area. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you have for us.
Vaginam, Raja Karuna.
Reginald Rajakruna. I'm the Staten Island Secretary of ASAAL from DC 37, Local 1407. I'm in council in Nycha, and I look forward to talking to you.
Nurul Haq.
Hello, Senator. This is Nurul Haq from ASAAL Queens Chapter. I'm a member of 1199 SEIU, also a member at the Community Board here at Queens 12, also NYPD's 103rd Precinct Council. Nice to meet you.
Ahsanul Haq, Engineer Ahsanul Haq. Unmute yourself, unmute. Ahsan bhai, unmute yourself. Yes.
Thanks, Mr. Chaudhary, having giving me the opportunity. This is the Ahsanul Haq, by profession engineer, New York City DOT. Used to work with the New York State. Now have been involved with the ASAAL long time. Used to be the past president of the Brooklyn chapter ASAAL. Still, I have been working with the ASAAL. So I would like to involve with the community so that we can elect a good city controller. Thanks.
Very good, very good. Tamara Martin.
Good evening, Senator. Actually, Senator Benjamin is my state senator, so good evening.
Yes, yes, we know that.
Member of ASAAL.
So that he feels comfortable, you know.
Public Employees Federation co-chair for the statewide Joint Affirmative Action Advisory Committee. Also the co-chair for Region 10 Political Action Committee and the council leader at Division 351 for the State Attorney General's Office.
Very good. With that, now I'll say Adan Islam.
Hi, good evening, Senator. This is Women's Committee Chair Adan Islam for Queens Chapter ASAAL. And I'm a CUNY adjunct faculty for the Department of Art and Physical Sciences, and I teach climate change there. Other than that, I'm involved with a committee. It is an NGO's committee for financing for development at United Nations. Thank you.
Sultana Khanum. Sultana Khanum.
Good evening, good afternoon, actually good evening. My name is Sultana Khanum, Political Action Director, Queens Chapter, ASAAL. And also I'm working for the city, social worker. Thank you.
Afroza Begum.
Hi, Brian. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. We are good to see you here. Thank you. My name is Afroza Begum. I'm the ASAAL member in Queens Chapter, and also I am the Newark and Bangladeshi Women's Club founder president. Thank you.
Thank you. Albert.
Hi, Senator Benjamin. I am the first elected district leader in Queens way back in 2000. And I think you have Caribbean heritage too, Guyanese mother?
Guyanese mother, Jamaican father.
So we share a lot in common because I'm from the Caribbean too. So that's a lot in common. And we're here with a lot of South Asian diaspora together.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We're here to do the work of the people.
You are South Asian too.
Albert is an attorney. He's a political activist. He's a community leader. He leads South Asian there in Queens.
The unofficial mayor of Richmond Hill.
Mausumi, unmute yourself, please. Mausumi Khan. Unmute.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Moshmi Khan. Thank you. I'm eager to hear from you and hear your ideas. I'm calling you from Michigan, but I'm a transplanted New Yorker. Thank you. National Immigration.
I hope I did not miss anybody. Jed Medalon, are you there, Jed? Jed? Sharmin Tahir.
Hi, good evening, Senator. I'm Sharmin Tahir, ASAAL member, Queens Chapter.
Thank you, Sharmin. Jed, if you can unmute yourself, please talk.
Continue.
All right, Jed is, I think he's having difficulties to go. All right, so I will ask first question from our very renowned leader, chapter leader, Somnath Gimire. Somnath, please ask your first question.
Thank you so much for allowing me to ask my first question to Senator Brian Benjamin. First question is, our city has lost more people than any other city during this pandemic. How you would have dealt with the pandemic if you would have been the person in power? Next, how you would address the mental health challenges many face, especially due to COVID-19? And the last point is, what is your opinion regarding the understatement of senior center debt members by the governor?
Can you repeat the last part of the last question again, please, about the governor? Say that one more time.
What is your opinion regarding the understatement of senior center deaths numbers by the governor?
Oh, I see, the nursing homes. I got you.
Yes, right. Nursing home case, yes.
Okay, all right. So let me, if you don't mind, I'm going to do just a quick intro, and then I'm going to jump into your questions.
Sure.
So Senator Brian Benjamin.
Yes.
ASAAL, thank you.
Yeah, you are supposed to have 3 minutes of your introduction. Please do that.
Okay.
No problem.
Thank you to ASAAL. Thank you to everyone who's here. You know, Tamara Martin and I served on Community Board 10 together. Good to see Tamara, always moving and shaking. You know, I am a son of Harlem. My parents were born in the Caribbean, as I was mentioning earlier. My mother from Guyana, my dad from Jamaica. My dad is my stepfather, but as far as I'm concerned, he raised me, so he's my father. They both came to this country with 2 suitcases apiece and a dream. And my mother was fortunate enough to land a job as a secretary at DC 37, local 372. I was raised at 125 Barclay Street. And, you know, I was fortunate enough, and my dad is a janitor for Stuyvesant High School, and he's a 32 BJ member. Both of them are retired on pensions right now, and they live in Southeast Queens. They have a home in Southeast Queens. The absolute American dream. They were able to send me to Catholic school from K to 12. Was then able to attend Brown University, where I majored in public policy, and Harvard Business School, where I majored in investment management. After that, I spent a few years at Morgan Stanley, where I did investment management. And after when Barack Obama ran for president, I just decided that I wanted to sort of leave investments and actually consider public service myself as a public servant. So I left. I went and started building affordable housing in Harlem, and I joined my local community board. Over the period of time of building affordable housing and on a community board, you learn so much about the community, and you really generate a lot of ideas and thoughts around what needs to happen. I was building affordable housing in Harlem, and you know, in 2017, after fortunate enough to becoming the chair of the community board, there was an opening to run for state senate. I became the state senator, and I spent the last number of years doing a couple things. One was helping to get New York State to stop investing in private prisons. When I first came into the Senate, I was the ranking member of the Civil Service and Pension Committee, and we were actually still having a small allocation, about $20 million, a small in a $200 billion number, but it's still a lot of money invested in private prisons. I introduced a bill. I worked with State Comptroller Tom DiNapoli to divest. And one of the reasons why I was able to do that is because I understand investments. I'm presently on the board of trustees at Brown University, where I'm on the team that helps to manage the $4+ billion endowment. So when you talk about manager selection, asset allocation, portfolio diversification, these are things I'm very familiar with. So anyway, but after helping us to divest from private prisons, I've introduced a bill to start New York State from lending to private prisons. One of the things I try to do is I try to take a problem and take it to its conclusion. And we are presently getting to a place where I believe in the United States of America, we will no longer be having private prisons in any way, shape, or form. That's part of the goal. But then we took over the majority. And since taking over the majority, I have been the head of the Senate Committee on Budget and Revenues. So it's my job to help figure out how we're going to find the revenues to balance our budget so that we don't have to make any cuts to hospitals, education, any of our key services. You know, 2 years ago, I decided to throw my hat in the ring for the New York City Comptroller race because of a few things. One is I believe I'm the most qualified person in the race. Having attended Brown University and Harvard Business School and having had managed investments before, I'm the only candidate run who actually has investment management experience. If you're my parents or anyone with a pension, you want to know that the person who's overseeing the $240 billion actually has experience in managing that kind of money. I've not only done that in the private sector, I've also done it on the Board of Trustees of Brown. Also, we need to look at the public pension fund role very seriously. We should be investing more in affordable housing, affordable home ownership. We should be looking at providing permanent supportive housing from an investment standpoint. There are a number of important public priorities that the Comptroller's office can be an activist around getting accomplished. Also, I believe that the next Comptroller has to manage every single dollar because we cannot afford waste. The city has a $5 billion budget deficit, a budget gap that has to close. The state has a $15 billion gap that has to close. The city relies on 27% of the city's budget actually comes from the state and the federal government. So there is absolutely no room for error. We should be more targeted, very careful around contracts, outside consultants, and really looking at how we're going to sort of get more with less and measure every single outcome based on the programs that we're funding. And then we can talk about that as we move forward. So I just wanted to I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I want you to, Somnath, please repeat your question again to the senator. I think he said a little bit, so go ahead.
Okay.
Right. Start over again.
Okay.
Got the question
again.
Good. You have time. We have a lot of time for you. No problem.
Okay, go ahead.
Our city has lost more people than any other city during this pandemic, as we all know. How you would have dealt with the pandemic if you would have been the person in power? Next, how you would address the mental health challenges many face, especially due to the pandemic COVID-19. And the last one, what is your opinion regarding the understatement of senior center death numbers by the governor?
Sure. So if I was the comptroller during the pandemic, there's a couple of things that I would have been very focused on to help. Number one, remember the mayor, the mayor and the comptroller have to work together with the state in order to protect lives and to help figure out what's going on in the economy. So one of the things that I think would be an important role for the comptroller, particularly given this mayor and this governor, is to really be a bridge between the two of them. They are fighting like cats and dogs unnecessarily a lot of times, and it's important to remember that the state ultimately has the power. One of the things I would have been trying to do for both the mayor and the governor would be providing a lot of clarity around, where the revenues are being lost, why that's happening, how are we doing, contract tracing, rolling out the vaccine. There's a lot of mechanics around that. I think the comptroller could play a very important role in that. Secondly, on education, whether we have a hybrid education or not, the truth of the matter is a lot of kids in our community have not received did not receive the devices, don't have access to broadband, and we are losing so much time. There's some kids who have not participated in class since March of this pandemic. That has significant consequences for our economy, significant consequences for our future. And I think the comptroller could have played an important role in helping to elucidate those concepts and making sure that resources are getting where they're supposed to go. There are some communities where the majority of kids who go to some of those schools live in homeless shelters. That's a very different dynamic that requires very different decision making than kids who grow up in more wealthier parts of the neighborhood going to similar public schools elsewhere. I think that should be laid out in a very serious way. And then on the economy, there's been a lot of negotiations around how much, should restaurants be at 25% capacity? Should they be closed? Should they not? Broadway, et cetera, restarting the economy. I've been involved in all those conversations on the state level because of my role. But I do believe that the comptroller can play a very important role in being an economic ambassador for the city to dealing with not only the mayor and the governor, but also dealing with businesses. What are they seeing? What do they need? What do their employees need? There's a lot of conversations that a comptroller can really navigate, because besides making sure that you protect the pensions of the retirees, which is a very important deal, you do have a fair amount of flexibility in how you spend your time. And I think in this time, making sure everyone knows what's going on with COVID, trying to help make sure that people get vaccinated as soon as possible, because our economy cannot get restarted if we don't get people vaccinated, making sure our kids get educated. Those are the kinds of things that a comptroller can really help provide detailed and thoughtful information and be a liaison across multiple entities to get that done. Now, in regards to your question around the nursing homes, I believe that the governor should have leveled with us about the nursing home deaths. Obviously, his argument has been, well, whether they died in the hospital, they died in a nursing home, they died anyway. I do think that it is important to lay out where these things are happening, because those have consequences for decisions we made. I do believe that the federal government did say to us, the CDC said that nursing, if people can go back to nursing homes, that was authorized to try to create more capacity at hospitals. There was a time, now it's a different time. Back in March, April, we were concerned that we didn't have enough hospital capacity for the amount of folks who had COVID. So I do think that it was not, I think he should have just handled that a whole lot better in terms of just leveling with people. And that's one of the things I think a comptroller is the right person to be, is the accountability and transparency person, the person who is making sure that whatever the city says we're spending $5 billion on COVID. Okay, well, what did you spend it on? And make sure that the public is aware. That's what a chief financial officer does, right? I went to business school and I'm familiar with a lot of companies, and chief financial officers are the people who lay it all out. Do you have the cash for this? Do you not? Where the money is, where the assets are, where the, what are the expenses? You really have to play that role. And I think what we need in the comptroller for the city of New York is someone who can understand all those details, but then communicate it easily for people so that the general public can understand without a whole lot of work what's going on, ask any questions, and then he could get further detail when possible. There are a lot of audits that happen out of the comptroller's office, a lot of reports. Most people don't have the time to read all of that. So I think part of what we have to do going forward is really make it digestible and easy, particularly around topics that are seriously generating a lot of attention, that have a lot of concern. And that is the kind of thing that I think a comptroller could do. I'm sorry, what was your second question again?
Mental health crisis.
So one of the things, one of the priorities that I have in my plan to be the next comptroller is the auditing of the NYPD. One of the reasons why I want to audit the NYPD is because two of the top reasons why the NYPD is typically called into our communities is mental health and for sort of not necessarily domestic related issues where people know who each other are. And I think that we have to be a lot more targeted around what resources are we spending on mental health. Many of us are familiar with the Thrive NYC program and a lot of the concerns around that. Where is the money? Like, what are the issues? Where is the money going? What programs are being implemented that are providing the right results and outcomes? What are the outcomes we're seeking, right? So for me personally, I really believe that as people are transitioning out of incarceration, I want to make sure that they have the mental health services that they need to integrate back into society and not become a new recidivate. What programs are we implementing to help them? Working alongside the correction officers who are helping to transition them as well. I think those are the kinds of things we need to have measurable results that we are tracking for the money we're spending when it comes to mental health, because whether you can't police your way out of all of this, right? Someone said to me the other day, "Oh, we should send more police to the trains." I guess so, but if you deal with the mental health, you wouldn't have to send more police to the train, because we need to figure out how we're going to prioritize public safety and look at it in a way where we are being preventative. And I don't know how we do that without addressing mental health across the board.
All right. So, Nurul Islam, please ask your question. Professor Nurul Islam, Queen Chapter President. Unmute.
Monirul Islam.
Yeah, not the, yeah, my name is wrong. Sorry about that.
No problem.
I was
Problem.
calling you, but I called his name. He's in front of me anyway.
Okay.
Bhai, please go ahead.
I have one question for you. That how should you think about high school should be open immediately? Yes or no? Yes. If yes, the how you open the immediately high school?
So I think the question was, should high schools be open immediately? Was that the question?
Yes.
Okay. So, first of all, this is a decision that the mayor has to make. And I think one of the key, and I'm gonna answer your question, but I just want to kind of label it from mayor comptroller. And the one of the things that as comptroller, I really want to take a look at is the spending and the mechanics and how, our schools are dealing with COVID, et cetera, et cetera. All right. Now, let me ask you a question. As far as high schools are concerned, I'm concerned about high schools being reopened primarily because they can become obvious places for COVID to sort of flourish. Because most of our high schools, they're not zoned, so you have a situation where people, students can be coming from areas that have high levels of COVID and then sharing it. So for me, I would want to make sure that that schools have rapid testing, that the teachers have rapid testing, that there is a very aggressive protocol to keep these kids safe. I think it's not extremely easy at this time. I am very much in favor of aggressively ramping up the amount of vaccines that are being distributed, particularly amongst our school-age children. I think that can really help us to sort of help resolve the COVID issue. But I'm concerned about transmission, and it's a real issue. And I do think for our high schoolers, a couple of more months. I know it's not great. A couple more months of them on Zoom is probably the safest option at this time, because unless the schools have very clear protocols for how they're going to keep everyone safe with daily rapid tests.
Thank you.
Albert Baldev.
Senator, you have already been a winner in that you are in space of one generation from 2 suitcases. You're running for one of the highest offices in New York City. So congratulations and thank you for the inspiration.
Thank you, sir.
You're no doubt one of the most qualified, and you bring a lot to the table. What is your path of victory, though? Because you recognize that ASAAL can only back a winner, and we would want to do that. And hence you have to show us how you can win this race.
Absolutely. So thank you for that. I think, I have a great political team that's helping to advise me, and there's a number of things that we think are essential. Number one is money. I've already raised $2.8 million, and we are moving very aggressively to making sure we have the maximum resources necessary to get our message out and run this race effectively. Number one. Number two, when it comes to our path, we believe communities of color can help communities of color and anyone who believes that the most qualified candidate should win the race. So when you combine those two pockets, that we believe that's a winning team. Between African Americans, Latinos, people of Asians, people of color, as that we're the majority. And so as far as we're concerned, we can win that way, and we are doing well in those spaces. I've practically won the endorsements of all of Northern Manhattan across the board. We just won the endorsement of the Bronx Democratic Party, so we have a lot of support coming out of the Bronx. I just was able to win the support of two very historic, important clubs in Brooklyn, Vanguard Independent Democratic Association, as well as the Thomas Jefferson Club. They have both endorsed, and both of those that represent Central Brooklyn and South Brooklyn, Canarsie, where there were a lot of people of color. We are also in the process of nailing down some very important endorsements in Southeast Queens. And so when you look at Staten Island's looking really good on the North Shore. So when you look at all of that, you say to yourself, that's a winning coalition. I spent a lot in Harlem, I spent a lot of time talking to Congressman Charles Rangel and Carl McCall, Bill Thompson, people who have done this and won this before. And they said the way you win is with a rainbow coalition. It's not any different than how David Dinkins won in '89. And when we look at my endorsements, we look at the resources that I'm raising, and we look at some of the great conversations that we're having with labor. I've won Teamsters Local 237, CWA Local 1180, and a number of other labor unions are looking very favorably upon us. And with ASAAL, I'll be in some great shape. I think that we have, without question, a path to victory. And when we look at the field that is now organizing itself, it's a good race for me.
Mohammed, I just want to ask about the Guy Brewer Club. Were you there the last endorsement?
I will be going. I think I'm going in the next week or two. So, but yeah, so that's happening. That's happening shortly.
Great.
I'm sorry, Mohammed, you're on mute.
Harjit Minhas, Secretary from Queen Chapter.
Hi, hello, Senator. So the question I have for you, as you were mentioning, building a coalition and so on, South Asians, obviously, that's what ASAAL represents. And I've asked this question to each and every one of the candidates prior. And the question I have for you is, are you committing to increasing diversity on your staff? And if elected, how many South Asians do you plan on appointing? And how will you promote the South Asian community to get access to local, city, state, federal benefits and jobs? So what is your plan to help the South Asian community?
Sure, thank you for the question. I don't have a specific number, but what I do know is that we will work on this together. And one of the things I plan on doing upon election is having a transition team. And for me, diversity across the board is essential. And without question, I have I've had a couple of conversations with folks like Kevin Thomas and a few others. This is an important topic in the Senate. And I have been, and you can call them on this, I have been working in the Senate right now to help increase the amount of South Asians who are getting opportunities on some of the boards that the majority of the Andres Stewart cousins gets to appoint. So this is not like a make-believe thing for me. To me, I believe that the city should represent all of us. And upon being elected comptroller, I would work with you to figure out, where's who are the most talented folks who can play a role. Because one thing I want to make sure we do is we have talented people across the board. I just want to make sure that it's inclusive so that every community gets to participate in a very meaningful way. And so, there's a $70 million budget, about 750 to 800 staff. There are more than enough opportunities, particularly in some of the important departments. But I'd want to sort of figure that out with you in terms of what the exact number is. But I will be very committed to doing that. And not only that, also investing in the South Asian community, because $240 billion is a lot of money. It's a big public pension fund, and I believe that we should be doing more economically targeted investments in communities in New York City. I used to build affordable housing. There are really solid returns in affordable housing, but there are also solid returns in some of our small businesses, tech businesses, companies that are trying to bridge the digital divide. There are companies out there that are really doing some important public service needs, obviously, in making a profit. Those are the kinds of companies that we should be investing in. Companies that hire in our communities, like small businesses in our communities are where a lot of our employment is. We should be looking to invest in the right small business in our communities to help stimulate not only those businesses, but the local economy and the local job market. So for me, I look at it as a full service thing. The office being the comptroller's office being one piece, but then also investments across the board.
I'm sorry, I just wanted a quick follow-up on what you had mentioned. So you want to invest in private businesses as opposed to like city jobs and so on?
No. I said that you could do both. What I said is that I said that number one, I'd have a transition team and we would look at doing that. That's number one. I said, in addition to that, I think it's important as well to invest in the communities where people live as well. So I want to make sure that we are investing in communities of color with some of the pension money across the board. So I'd want to work with you and work with the community on that piece as well.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
All right, thank you. Senator, now I know Tamara Martin is your favorite. And she is our leader. She's a PEP member. She's a ASAAL leader. And she's from Manhattan. So, Tamara, it is your turn. Please ask the senator right question.
So, hi. So you answered, I was going to ask you a question about community and how you wanted to work in the community, what some of your plans were. So you already answered that. So I'll just follow up and ask, telecommuting. A lot of our members, right, have been doing work from at home, telecommuting, and it's been very instrumental. And I want to know what's your take on that, and do you support it going forward for long-term telecommuting, because that's important to us.
Sure. So to me, I support telecommuting for whoever it makes sense, right? So, I think one of the concerns we have as a comptroller, one of the concerns I would have is, local commerce, right? And one of the things that COVID has done is everyone's in their homes. So that means we don't have people getting on the train. So we now have a $15 billion shortfall that we have to help with the MTA. That means that, some of our small, businesses, the folks the bodegas, the local stores, that you would stop by when you go to your office job and they're suffering. We have retail has really been commercial retail has really been sort of brought to a halt downtown. There's a lot of expectations that are tied to that. So I do want to make sure that there's a plan for how we reinvigorate the economy to help generate those revenues, et cetera. But without question, I'm a supporter of telecommuting. I think there have been some benefits of people being able to work from home in terms of a family life and people being able to spend time with their loved ones. I know some folks who have spent time with family members who have been ailing, and they've been able to work and do that. So there's some a lot of good things have come from from telecommuting, but there's some issues that we have to resolve. So I support it. I just want to, but I do want to make sure that our whole economy works. But I personally think what works best for companies and what works best for nonprofits and entities, I think that has to be supported. I just want to know, working with folks, who's doing that, and then what does that mean for the general economy? What it means for everything else.
Great. All right, thank you. Reginald Rajakaruna, Secretary from Staten Island Chapter.
Good evening, Senator. My question is, the New York City Housing Authority has experienced a divestment of funds from the federal and state government over the last 10 years. What is your plan you would devise to get the federal and state government to begin funding Nycha again?
Sure. So thank you for that question. First of all, since I've been involved, since I was on the community board, I've just watched the capital needs of Nycha just balloon over the years. And now we're looking at a $40 billion capital investment need across the board. And to me, there's a number of things. I am a supporter of the Public Housing Preservation Trust idea that I just recently had a conversation with Greg Russ and his team about helping to enable state legislation to allow for the Public Housing Preservation Trust to be created, which will then unlock at least $3 billion of sort of tenant vouchers that can really help make a difference because you can bond against that to help solve some of the issues. I also like within that, when you create these public housing preservation trusts, it reduces this concern around if Nycha is becoming private or not. I do believe that Nycha should stay in the public domain. And so I think there are some really important topics around how do you enable the construction and the work to help rehab Nycha while keeping it in public control. So I think that those things are important, but I will continue to fight for that. We actually have to roll this out, and I've been lobbying a number of my colleagues in the Senate to help build the support. But there's some real money tied to that. Secondly, I do think that there should be some real analysis around how Nycha keeps track of its assets. I've heard, more than a number of disturbing stories around roofs being under warranty, yet a new roof gets purchased, and across the board, and how, work is happening. And so I think there's some real concerns there. But the $40 billion problem is the really big problem, because people are just living in some really rough situations, and we have to figure it out. The federal government has divested over years, as you mentioned. I think we can get it done. I think we can get it done with this Public Housing Preservation Trust, and then have a bite-sized amount. I've been talking with Greg Russ about, how do you think about the first things you need to do? Because one of the problems with housing is, if if you don't fix the roof, but you fix an apartment, and then all of a sudden there's leaking in the roof, then you almost have to redo the apartment again, right? So there's some staging to how you do this. And I used to do rehab, affordable housing before, so I have a little bit of familiarity with it. There's a lot of there, and I think it can be done. But let's start with this bill, and then let's also look at how Nycha is tracking its assets and resources, because there's some real value there.
All right, Engineer Ahsanul Haq. Hassan bhai, unmute yourself.
Thanks, Mr. Chaudhary. The guidance given by the ASAAL, I don't go through the time because I have been driving. So I just make a quick questions that how you improve, as I am the committee member of the EO committee of the federal government as well as the New York City. So if you elected the city controller, how you make the development or improvement of the EO policy and the inclusion of diversity? Thanks.
So the inclusion of diversity, a couple of things. One is less than 5% of the investment managers at the New York City Comptroller Office are people of color. That needs to be addressed. I think that one of the things I will look to do is work with the consultants of the different trustee boards, because one of the things I think everyone has to stay focused on is the city comptroller can't just make decisions with the money. The city comptroller has to make recommendations to the trustee boards, and the trustee boards, which you are a member of, have to then vote to approve it. So one of the things I want to focus on is working with their consultants, because all of the funds have a consultant, working with the consultants to really think through where's the pool? How are we writing these RFPs to attract investment managers? What's in that information? What are we looking for? And how are we reaching out? Because quite frankly, across the board, with South Asians, Black, Latino, there are a lot of talented managers out there who are just not in the mix. And so we need to figure out how to address that. That's number one. Number two, the Comptroller Stringer presently does his report card where he shows how city agencies are doing as it relates to diversity, and those numbers are pretty bad too. Those are less than 5% number too. So we need to now take those reports and then go look at how are they awarding contracts, what are the RFPs, how are discretionary awards happening, and really dig into the mechanics to then understand, because once you lay that stuff out in a serious way, then you can work with a task force. Because, for example, in different agencies, there's different contractors who make sense, or different MWBE suppliers. Then I'd want to sit down with those suppliers who are available and say, look, this is what's happening. Have you been applying? If you've been applying, what are the hurdles? And really try to figure out some recommendations to a task force to then lobby for with the mayor and and his agencies to wrap up those numbers. I think you can talk about the problems until you're blue in the face, but if the RFPs and the way the process works continues, facilitates the status quo, you're going to still be scratching your head. So I really want to dig into that. I used to be a part of MWBE. Myself and my partner, both Harvard Business School graduates, and it was hard to get business with the city, right? Very talented. We knew what we were doing. It's so hard because they're used to giving contracts to the same people who they've been giving the contracts to for the last 40 years. So I know the frustrations of being the business trying to do business with the city, and so I can bring that mindset to how we sort of make it easier for talented, diverse suppliers, contractors, et cetera, to get opportunities to do business with the city of New York.
Good. Nurul Bhai, Nurul from Queen's chapter.
I would like to just once again, thanks for your good answer. But you are talking about the awarding the business and consultancy to the minority. This is great. But what about the decasmic policy, but the executive level position open, filled up by the some people of color, but how you involve the South Asian, like Chaudhary, Map Mesbauddin, those the people have a very high quality people. So how you can involve with these people as a diversity inclusion? I'm not, you already give a good answer regarding the awarding of the business and consultancy to the minority, but about however the city policy. So please, in short, you can give a little bit.
The city, I'm not sure I fully am grasping the question. The city, the New York
policy to involve the executive level position in the DCAS, and other.
I apologize. Well,
no, that's okay.
Okay, I apologize. I will definitely sort of look at what that diversity looks like, and I'd work with the mayor's office. I mean, the mayor makes these decisions, so I will highlight what I'm seeing as sort of inequities and opportunities, and then I would, if necessary, we have to have a press conference to sort of highlight, sort of put people on, call people out if we need to. But my goal would be to highlight the issues and then really work with the mayor and his team to ensure that there are appropriate appointments, and particularly within the South Asian community.
Very good. Nurul Bhai, please.
Sorry, I missed that part of your question. I apologize.
Thank you, Karim Bhai. I think we have enough questions, so I pass on.
You'll pass on? Okay.
Yeah.
Sharmin Tahir. Unmute yourself, Sharmin Tahir.
Hi, Senator. I have two questions for you.
Speak up.
Okay. I'm just listening so carefully, so I can talk right now. What educational priorities do you think the legislature should focus on in 2021 that will improve the New York City public school system? That's the first one. And the second one, do you support mayoral control of New York City schools?
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you, the first question, repeat that one more time?
Sure. Of what educational priorities do you think the legislature should focus on in 2021 that will improve the New York City public school system?
Got it. Okay, got it. Okay, so in my present role as senator, so number one, we need to make sure that we fully fund our public schools. That is up for debate right now because of concerns around whether or not we have resources coming from the federal government to help us with our $15 billion deficit. So we need to make sure that we actually, whether it's through federal appropriations through state and local support, and or through revenue raisers, and I'm chair of the committee that's focusing on that. We need to make sure that we fund our schools. So that's number one. Number two, I do think that we have to make sure that our kids are getting the devices and the broadband that they need in order to function and compete well in schools. And so for me, that is a state priority, and I am working with my colleagues to make sure that we can provide that support. In regards to mayoral control, I do support mayoral control mainly because I don't have a better alternative at the moment. And so for me, I think the right question is mayoral control with a caveat. So I've always liked the idea of having mayoral control where the local communities have significant input in how the superintendents are determined, and how the right resources, et cetera, are coming to those schools, and from where I do, we have the CEC system. I do believe that mayoral control with appropriate community input and approvals in particular spaces makes a lot of sense, and I will continue to support that.
Very good, very good. Mausumi Khan, please. Mausumi Khan.
Hello, hi. Thank you so much for your really great comments, and congratulations to you and your family for your excellent upbringing and your education.
Thank you.
Yes, I wanted to just ask a question about immigration policy. As you mentioned, that the Comptroller will really kind of focus on what kinds of policies that you choose to help to fund. And so I'd love to hear your priorities for the immigrant community, particularly in New York. And related to that, you made a very good point about the holistic economy. I know your constituent Tamara Martin raised the point about working from home, and I do understand why that's important. But how would you look at how the local economy in New York employs so many immigrants? So my question is about immigration policy and the economics of that. Thank you.
Yeah, so as it relates to, immigration, I mean, there's a couple of things that we are concerned about, right? So one is there are undocumented immigrants, right? And a number of those undocumented immigrants right now have not received any support during this period. And so I am a supporter of making sure that we provide some sort of financing for excluded workers. I was just on a call earlier today discussing how we're gonna look at our one house budget in the state to make sure that we have some support for those who have been suffering in that regard. So that's number one. Number two, I do believe that workforce development is a very important priority. I am usually of the opinion where I like to talk with people, and so I like to sit down with some of our immigrants to figure out what are the kinds of workforce development related strategies that we need to be investing more in. A lot of times I feel like we're making decisions in a vacuum, and I don't think that necessarily is usually the most efficient, because quite frankly, better than me what you need, right? And so I want to be a place. I want the Comptroller's office to be a place where constituencies can sit down and we can talk about sort of what's going on, where the resources are, what you need more of, sometimes there's perceptions. People think this is what you need and that's not. And so I really want to have an iterative process, and not necessarily a process of where I just kind of decide and you have to deal with whatever I decide. So I think that those are two important components I'd like to mention. What was your other question again? I'm sorry.
I was just making the point. I very much appreciate Ms. Martin's bringing up the fact that people working from home, but I also appreciated you pointing out that these, the coffee vendor, when I was living in New York, Kabir's Bakery, what these people, they're funding jobs for the immigrant community, right? So I wanted you to kind of speak to that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Sorry about that. So there are a number of things that are just so important, because it's usually our immigrants community who are the street vendors, and when you look at the street permit situation, you say to yourself, we could do something better here. And so I have been actually talking about it as a legislator, but I think I can really do this on the Comptroller level, really laying out sort of, who's hurting the most when the economy closed, and where are people hurting, and how do we think about that? Because we can't just assume when the economy reopens that everyone's okay. There are no people who are not going to be okay, because there's going to be some remnants of what we're doing now that won't stop, right? So to Tamara's point about telecommuting, okay, well, who's telecommuting and who's not? And the people who are telecommuting, what did they used to do? And how are we going to deal with the consequences of the fact that they're no longer doing that? That to me is the kind of comprehensive approach that you have to think through, because through no fault of our own, COVID hit, and the government, which I'm a part of, said, No one can move. Public safety, public health is our top priority. Economy shut down. But the economy was not shut down. It was the street economy was shut down. The internet economy has been booming and has grown tremendously. Who's benefiting from that? Are we transitioning people to opportunities in the internet economy? And if so, how? And if so, who? Right? Those are all the kinds of things you got to think about, because if you don't, you're going to have the haves and the have-nots further exacerbated, which has significant consequences for all of us. And I fear it's communities of color who are going to be over impacted in the have-not space. And as a comptroller who is the son of a Chinese mother and a Jamaican father who came here, with nothing and gave me this opportunity, and labor unions that have given me all this support, I need to make sure that those who are coming from my community are okay, and aren't left behind. And so that's what I will look to do. But I think to me, it all starts with the data. It's so easy in this time and age to everyone's on Twitter, and everyone, and it's the people who sound the loudest. You think they know the most, but it's really the job of the comptroller to really provide information that people can utilize, and then make sure that all communities are receiving support. There's inclusivity, and then there's fairness, and that everyone can grow who wants to grow, and that's what I would like to do.
Thank you, Kevin. Sultana Khanum.
Hi, hello, Senator.
Hi.
I know that we have asked you a lot of questions, so my question is very specific and precise. You can rank them by A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3. So
Okay.
my question is, if you are elected, what will be your top 3 legislative priorities?
So if I was elected, my top priorities are: 1, affordable housing production and permanent supportive housing production that helps to deal with the homelessness crisis. I put that in the same bucket because that's all housing, affordable housing, home ownership, blah, blah, blah. That's number 1. Number 2, I think we have to audit the NYPD. People need to feel safe. And that goes for everybody. We have to reimagine public safety in this city. And the only way to do that is to look at what we're spending our police resources on. And are those things keeping us more safe, or are they not? People think that they're more safe, but sometimes there are things being missed. So we need to look at that. And then third, sort of making sure that the contracts that are being registered in the city of New York are contracts, that where people are being included. I think there needs to be more diversity in those contracts. And I think those who get contracts in the city of New York need to get paid on time so that they can pay their employees on time. It is really a tough situation when most communities of colors don't get contracts from the city. And when they do, it takes 6, 9, 12 months to get paid. If you don't have a big bank account, you can't afford to wait that out. So for me, I look at those 3 as top priorities.
Thank you.
Afroza Begum.
You're muted.
Unmute. Yes.
Yes, I always ask these questions about job related. I always asking. Thank you. Yeah, it's very simple questions. What priority and resource should the city give to making government services accessible to immigrant residents?
I mean, the small business services, this should be at the top of their list, right? I think, those who have not been, immigrants and people of color who have tradition, and in a lot of cases, the immigrants are people of color, so it's a double. Folks who are trying to come and get involved and be part of our system. Small business services has to be accessible and be helpful so that people can help grow, our economy. Small businesses generate a lot of the revenue for our city and hire a lot of our people. And immigrants tend to hire more immigrants. People of color tend to hire more people of color. I mean, this is how we make sure everyone's employed and participates in the economy. So for me, it needs to be at the top of the list.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Adan Islam.
Okay. Good evening, Senator. You
Good
look so
evening.
tired. It has been a long day.
No, it's all good.
Let me ask you some critical analytical question as you are Harvard Business grad to boost you up. Okay. Start with your statement of have and have nots, and let's ask about the affordable housing critical thing. Because you know, Senator, that I live in Queens, and the most of the 90% of South Asian community people are doing 3-4 jobs to meet their ends meet over here, and people are living with public assistance. So a family with four person, the selling for Medicaid is $33,000 a year. So those who are living with Medicaid, the public assistance for the health, if they want to apply for affordable housing, they are not going to be accepted, because there is a selling for the affordable housing for the 4 people. They should have to apply for 3-bedroom apartment, and it is higher than that. So it's a vicious circle.
It is.
Poverty, exaggerating poverty, and affordable housing has been a cruel business for our community. So what would be your strategy regarding to place our South Asian community in your Nycha plan, in your affordable housing plan, and what would be our portion? Please make me clear.
Sure. So thank you for the question. One of the things that I think we have to do is look at, so there's, you said business school, so I guess I might as well do it. So supply and demand still matters, right? And so one of the things that I think, unfortunately, we're not doing as well is tracking our demand, right? So tracking our demand at where the needs specifically are in a very serious way. And so when you track demand, what you will see is that we have a significant need at the 60% AMI level and below. So we have that need there. Unfortunately, the mayor, and this is something I have to work with the mayor on because I'm not running for mayor, right? So please ask to the mayoral candidates. But what the mayor has to do, and I will work with the mayor on this, has to do is say, okay, we have 200,000 units of need for folks at this level, at the 50-60% AMI level and below. Okay, we need a strategic plan citywide to build the units and make sure that we have supply that meets demand. Right now, what happens is the mayor will say, I have a 300,000 unit affordable housing plan. And you say, oh, that sounds great. But then when you double click on it, 60% of that is rehabbing existing units. That doesn't help you because those are units where people already live in there. So then 40% is the rest. So it's really about 120,000. But oops, that 120,000 is not targeted. What happens is that the affordable housing, whether it's the nonprofits or the for-profit community, they go and bid on contracts and opportunities in different neighborhoods. They have to negotiate with different city council members, blah, blah, blah. And what ends up happening is it's whatever they agree to, that's what gets built. That's not how we need to do it. The way we need to do it is say, we have a demand here, and this is the demand we have across the board. We need really about 500,000 units of affordable housing, new units, affordable housing. And it needs to be a strategic plan from City Hall that the mayor, almost like like how Biden has this $2 trillion rescue plan, and this is the plan, and he's working with the Congress and the Senate. We need to do housing the same. We need to really look at it as it's a rescue plan, because literally we don't have enough affordable housing. And what that's going to require, which is where the real rubber hits the road, is there are communities that don't want the affordable housing in their neighborhoods. They're going to have to do it. And that's where the rubber's going to hit the road, because they're going to have the Upper East Side saying, oh, no, we got to worry about Too much height means we're going to have shadows and all that. So we're going to have a real fight, because at the end of the day, people say affordable housing isn't a priority. They just, in certain neighborhoods, they just don't want it near them. They want it someplace else. And we need the whole city to be part of a whole plan to provide all of the affordable housing that we need at every level. And that's really a big political question, but the mayor has to take that on. And the comptroller will help. I will help provide the numbers, the research, and I will help as much as I can, but but that's not, and I will speak truth to both the mayor and the city council on this, but ultimately they have to execute it. But your point is a very valid point. I talk about this all the time. At the end of the day, no one wants to do the hard thing of saying, this is what we have to do. And it's going to require Soho, Chelsea, Park Slope, Upper West Side, Upper East Side. They all got to participate in this, in sort of providing this affordable housing.
Okay, thank you.
Senator, we are almost at the finish line. Let me ask you one question. You said a very important thing. Out of $92 billion budget, around $17 to $18 billion goes to the consultant in New York City.
That's right.
And yes, Comptroller Stinger, he did a great job auditing all those things and returning some fund and giving back to the workers. And in that context, what you can do to hire more city employee and cut the consultant? Now, first part of the question. Second part, wage theft is a big issue in our city.
I'm sorry, say that. What is a big issue?
Wage theft.
Wage theft, yes, of course.
Yes, it's a big issue in our city. And it is not only limited to the city budget, city employment. And I know you are a city controller, you may have limited access or authority to control the private business, that private business holders, they are still giving $3 to $7 an hour, where the minimum hourly rate is $15 for our people. So what you can do in order to enforce the law of minimum wage in New York City for private sector? I know you will do in city employment and with the consultant, with contractor, you will do that one. You have direct access.
Exactly.
You have direct authority. So what you can do for the private businesses, bodega stores, who is giving, who raised their 1 cup of coffee from $1 to $2.25 because the minimum wage high. And now his employee is still getting $3, $5, or $7. What you can do to that?
Sure. So let me start with your outside consultants question. You're absolutely right on outside consultants. Part of the issue is that a lot of times our mayor and our agencies will say, well, we have to hire these outside consultants because we don't have the in-house expertise for whatever new issues going on. So COVID happened. We don't have the in-house expertise, and we don't have the budget to bring them. We can't bring them in because then they're going to have to be union and that's what they say. So they bring in these outside consultants for these specific targets. To me, I believe there has to be a full accounting of these outside consultants, exactly where they are laid out, and the city needs to be called to task. The outside consultant budget has grown tremendously during de Blasio's administration. We need to lay that out, and we need to really force the mayor to the new mayor to reduce these outside consultants and hire more people if you need to hire more people in-house to do the work, but not have these super expensive outside consultants. A lot of times they're doing some presentation and then you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and you got nothing to show for it. But I think what helps us is a comptroller who would really pull out a couple of these stories and really illustrate that to the general public in a way that will galvanize people to say, oh my God, we have to deal with this problem. That's one. Two, on the wage theft, I think you have to be prepared to call people out. When the private sector wage theft, you have to sometimes go stand in front. I mean, if you don't have the power, because as you so accurately stated, I have the public power, but with these things, you have to be able to go stand with people, and you have to call attention to it, because a lot of private companies don't like public pressure. They don't like to see themselves in the newspaper, you know, they don't want to hear, they don't want to see, oh, look, XYZ staffer is getting paid $1 an hour. You have to bring some media and some public attention to it. You know, I spent a lot of time in Harlem where we know how to do these things well. I spent time with Reverend Sharpton and others where you know how to bring that attention to the table when you need to do it. I think that's going to be important here. There's a third thing, though, talking about the $92 billion budget. We are looking at about $10.5 billion of that $92 billion budget that has to go to another place, which is that has to go to pension contributions. And the reason why that has to go to pension contributions is because the city of New York requires a 7% annual return for the pension funds. And when the pension funds underperform that number, there's more contributions that the city has to make from the budget for that purpose. And I want to reiterate a point that I started off with, which is it's important in this time where we have no dollars to waste that we hire a comptroller who has investment management experience. I have it in spades. I went to Brown and Harvard Business School. I worked in Morgan Stanley where I managed investments. On the board of trustees of Brown University, I'm part of the team that manages the endowment. We've got to get our numbers under control because if we don't, it can get worse. And if it gets worse, that's more of the city's budget that is being not going towards important topics like health and education and social services. It's going towards proper pension contributions. So I think that that's an important thing I want to just add in to your question.
Very good, very good. Mabai, if you have any question, I think you have some.
No, I just want to just say thank you to Brian, and Brian will have his conclusion for 2 minutes. But Brian, the controls office has around 700 people works. 300 of them I represent because I'm the accountant union's president. All the auditors that audit all the things that the controller does is under me. And definitely you and I will be there a lot. We always work together as a union because my majority, your people is my people. And so you will have around 100 to 150 of your own, people you can bring because they are higher level, and also community affairs unit and so on and so forth. Apart from that, I think you amazed me the way you have grown and the way you have done. I saw you when you were very young. I became the president in 2000. Your mother was the happiest person in DC 37 at that time because that is the color we match, and I am from South Asian and she's from Guyana. So it was a very good thing. But she has not called me since then, but she has my number.
I'm going to have her call you. I'm going to tell her to give you a call.
Sure. So this is good. So now your final 2 minute, why you will be choosing. Of course, you already said it. I wanted to emphasize on this committee. We have around 22 people participated. After this, we will be analyzing, and within a week, we are going to decide. And majority vote will be number 1, and then number 2, number 3, because this year it is ranks voting. So this is good. But I'm glad that you came and you gave us your time. I don't know whether you have another one today, but at least you have done your part here with us. Thank you. Your 2 minutes.
So first of all, thank you, ASAAL. Thank you for this time. And one of the things that I can tell from the important questions is that you're engaged and you want to make sure that the leadership in New York City is inclusive and is built to perform for everyone. And that's what I offer. I am a son of this community. I was, born in Harlem to immigrant parents who came here with a hope for their son and their kids that we will live the American dream. And, my parents have done really well. Without a college education, they are living in a nice home in Southeast Queens, and their 3 kids have gone on. My brother's a photographer, my sister's a lawyer, and I'm standing here in front of you asking for your support to be the next New York City Comptroller. When I take my personal background and I take my experiences, in the private sector where I was, I went to business school and I spent some time at Morgan Stanley where I did investment management, and I was on the community board where I was really able to engage on local issues to really understand, about how, sort of on the ground things work. Spending time as a state legislator, fighting for divestment from private prisons, fighting for more support for MWBEs, and when I look at my political activity, helping to elect President Barack Obama, doing all those things, I bring that all to bear when I asked you to be the next comptroller, because there's so many different important components here, right? One is $240 billion has to get managed well. Retirees need to know that someone in that office is going to spend their every waking moment protecting their retirement. And that is an important thing, because my parents are a part of that. I want to make sure that your retirement, their retirements are safe. It's a defined benefit program. It needs to happen. But we also, while doing that, can make sure that we're investing in affordable housing. We're investing in affordable home ownership. We're providing permanent supportive housing where need be, providing returns for the retirees, and providing a good service for the community. We're investing in our minority and women-owned businesses across the board, investing in our communities to make sure that economically targeted investments help to grow our economy and also grow our communities. That's the kind of comptroller I will look to be, and I will make sure that I hold the city of New York accountable for every dollar that's spent. You know, our tax dollars that we provide to the city, it should be most efficiently used to help the city become better. And I want to make sure that I'm tracking every dollar. I'm working with the city to say, wait a second, we're spending money on these programs. Are we getting the outcomes that we asked for? And are we spending on the right programs? You know, how are we doing workforce development? How are we making sure our immigrant community is taken care of? Everyone needs to be a part of the conversation. We need it to be inclusive. We need to be fair. And the right comptroller, the right chief financial officer of the city of New York can work with the mayor, can work with you and the community, can make sure that it all occurs. And so that's what I'm looking to do. I humbly ask you for your support. And together we can make sure that everybody wins as we come out of COVID.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Really appreciate. I'll see you soon. Good luck.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for
Thank
joining.
you. Bye.